Hi everyone, welcome back to C News. I'm Smiley, and today we're diving into one of the most hilariously out-of-touch events of recent years, King Charles III's coronation. While some saw it as a historic moment, others, including the brilliant Stephen Colbert, couldn't help but roast the sheer absurdity of it all. From the over-the-top royal attire to the outdated traditions and the monarchy's refusal to modernize, Colbert held nothing back, and honestly, he was spot on. So, let's break it all down and have a good laugh while exposing just how ridiculous this whole spectacle really was. Buckle up, because this one's going to be fun. In May 2023, the world witnessed the grand spectacle of King Charles III's coronation, a ceremony steeped in centuries-old traditions, extravagant pageantry, and excessive displays of wealth. For many, particularly in Britain, this was a historic moment marking a new chapter in the monarchy. But for others, including Stephen Colbert, the whole event seemed like a relic from a bygone era, clashing awkwardly with modern sensibilities. During his show, Colbert wasted no time in skewering the coronation's over-the-top nature, pointing out its absurdities and highlighting the contradictions in King Charles's so-called efforts to modernize the monarchy. And honestly, he was spot on. The coronation was a dazzling but completely unnecessary spectacle that felt out of place in today's world. With a cost estimated to be over £100 million, during a time when Britain was grappling with economic hardships, rising inflation, and a cost of living crisis, the whole thing seemed tone-deaf. Colbert's sharp wit, as always, exposed the ridiculousness of celebrating extreme wealth and privilege while everyday people struggled to make ends meet. One of Colbert's most memorable jokes was about King Charles III's coronation attire, which he compared to something out of Burger King. And honestly, it was a fitting comparison. Charles was draped in gold, velvet, and ermine, walking around in an outfit so extravagant it looked like it belonged in a medieval fantasy film rather than a 21st-century event. It was almost comical to see a man in his 70s paraded around in such an elaborate costume, as if he were stepping out of a time machine from the 1600s. While many people revere these traditions as important symbols of continuity, the truth is that they only serve to reinforce the monarchy's detachment from reality. The ridiculous outfits, jeweled crowns, and heavy robes only highlighted how outdated and out of touch the institution really is. Colbert's joke about the coronation outfit looking like it belonged to Burger King was a perfect way to mock the absurdity of it all. The monarchy, which has tried so hard to present itself as a modern institution, still clings to these grand, antiquated traditions that make it look more like a cosplay event than a serious political institution. The fact that so much money and effort was put into an outfit that Charles would wear for just a few hours speaks volumes about the monarchy's priorities. Shouldn't a modern monarch wear something a little more practical? Something that doesn't look like it belongs in a history museum? The sheer excess of it all was embarrassing, and it's no wonder comedians like Colbert had a field day with it. Even beyond the visual ridiculousness of the coronation attire, there's a deeper problem: these costumes symbolize the monarchy's unwillingness to evolve. The heavy robes and lavish scepters are remnants of an era when kings ruled by divine right and held absolute power. Today, Charles is just a figurehead, yet he still dresses like he's about to command an empire. If the monarchy really wants to prove it has a place in the modern world, perhaps it should start by ditching the outdated dress code. Otherwise, it just continues to look like an institution stuck in the past, pretending it still holds the kind of significance it once did. Stephen Colbert also pointed out the sheer number of outdated traditions that made the coronation feel like a relic of a different century. One of the strangest moments was the anointing ceremony, in which Charles was dabbed with oil from the Mount of Olives, transported all the way from Jerusalem just for this occasion. The whole scene was treated as this deeply sacred moment, shielded from public view by golden screens, as if it held some mystical power. But let's be real, this wasn't some divine act of destiny. It was an old ritual that serves no real purpose beyond making the monarchy seem more important than it actually is. Colbert's ability to highlight these absurdities through humor is why his take was so refreshing. He pointed out how bizarre it is that, in a time when Britain is dealing with major social and economic struggles, its head of state is being anointed with ancient oil like a biblical king. The whole thing felt like a desperate attempt to cling to a sense of grandeur that simply doesn't fit in today's world. Why do we still pretend that the British monarch is somehow chosen by fate, when in reality, it's just another example of privilege being passed down through bloodlines? It's no wonder that younger generations in Britain and across the world are questioning the relevance of these traditions. Then there was the carriage, the golden carriage. Another ridiculous part of the coronation was the king's grand procession in an opulent, gold-plated carriage that looked like it was plucked straight out of a fairy tale. While some might argue it's an important symbol of continuity, in reality, it just showed how absurdly disconnected the monarchy is from the modern world. Colbert likened the whole event to a Renaissance fair, and he wasn't wrong. Watching Charles wave from his golden chariot while many Brits were struggling to pay rent was, quite frankly, offensive. It reinforced the idea that the monarchy is more about performance than anything of real value. Perhaps one of the most important parts of Colbert's roast was his commentary on the British monarchy's colonial history. The crown jewels worn by Charles, including the massive Koh-i-Noor diamond, are painful reminders of Britain's imperial past, taken from colonized nations without consent. The fact that these jewels were proudly displayed during the coronation, rather than being returned to their rightful countries, was a clear signal that the monarchy has no real interest in addressing its historical wrongdoings. Colbert humorously pointed out that the coronation jewels could serve as a world map of British colonialism, with each gem representing a country the empire once looted. While it was a joke, it was also painfully accurate. The British monarchy built its wealth and power by extracting resources from other nations, yet during these grand ceremonies, it conveniently ignores that history. The message sent by the coronation was clear: the monarchy wants to enjoy the spoils of colonialism without acknowledging the harm it caused. And that's the real problem with these events: they continue to glorify a system that was built on exploitation. The British monarchy loves to talk about tradition and heritage, but those traditions come with a dark past. Instead of addressing its legacy and making meaningful changes, the institution doubles down on its outdated pageantry, hoping people won't notice. But as Colbert's segment proved, people are noticing. King Charles III has repeatedly emphasized his desire to modernize the monarchy, yet everything about his coronation contradicted that claim. Colbert pointed out the irony of someone calling themselves a modern monarch while being carried in a gold-plated carriage and wearing a robe fit for a medieval king. And he's right: how can you modernize an institution that is, by its very nature, rooted in outdated hierarchies and excessive privilege? If Charles truly wanted to make the monarchy relevant in today's world, his coronation should have reflected that. Instead of clinging to the past, he could have opted for a simpler, less extravagant event that showed he understands the struggles of ordinary people. Instead, he did the opposite, proving that the monarchy isn't capable of real change. Stephen Colbert's roast of the coronation was more than just comedy; it was a sharp critique of an institution that refuses to evolve. His jokes about the absurdity of Charles's attire, the outdated traditions, and the monarchy's colonial past were all rooted in truth. The coronation was a perfect example of why so many people see the monarchy as an unnecessary relic, clinging to grandeur while offering little of real substance. If King Charles III truly wants to be a modern king, he should start by addressing these criticisms rather than hiding behind tradition. But given what we saw at his coronation, that seems unlikely. And as Colbert so brilliantly highlighted, it makes for some great comedy, but also raises important questions about why the monarchy still exists in the first place.